Yeah, why gels? I've actually always found that gels give me personally a massive kick. So the difference between me using a gel in a race or in training and not is massive. They really do work. So it's just a concentrated form of energy, kind of like simple sugars, which your body can use almost immediately to keep you fueled up and keep you going. So yeah, I mean, if you are going to be competing or training for longer than 30 minutes, the by using a gel, you're probably going to get a lot more performance out of yourself. So with gels specifically, say Mountain Fuel gels, I would say that yeah, they work really well for any activity longer than 30 minutes. And then it depends on how many you can take as to how long you can be taking them for. So, for example, if you had like a 12-hour race, you might struggle to still take gels throughout the entire race. But I'm a big believer in getting them in you as soon as possible, because you don't want your body to get depleted and then start trying to refuel it. You want to stay ahead of the curve. So in say for example, if I was going to say run, let's say a marathon, so it's sort of like 2 to 3 hours for me, maybe a bit longer for other people, but I definitely have a gel going in me within 10 or 15 minutes of starting, which is pretty soon. Like, not, you wouldn't really expect to be doing that. You'd expect to run for say an hour and then you start feeling a bit empty, so then you take a gel. But I think that's definitely not the better way of doing it. So get the gel, the first one in you as soon as possible, so say after 10 or 15 minutes, and then have a good schedule, especially if you're running something like a marathon where your energy use is really the same over the entire duration. You can have a really good schedule, so having an alarm on your watch, for example, for every 25 minutes or every 30 minutes, and take the gel when the watch beeps. In an obstacle race or a trail race where it's a bit more up and down and you're going to use a lot more energy on the climbs, for example, it can get a little bit more. Take it when you feel you need it, or take it on the climbs, for example, when you have a little bit more time to take it. But I think having an alarm on your watch is a really good idea. So it's really easy to think, okay, I take a gel during racing, it's going to help. But what about in training, which is a lot more difficult to answer, whether you should be taking gels in all your trainings or just the key sessions, or trying to take gels in as few trainings as possible, so when you get to a race you get more effect out of that gel. I'm not actually sure of the exact right answer to that, and I think it's going to be different for everyone. But my approach is to take gels as little as possible in training, but I can use them if I really want that session to be a really good one. So it's a really important session and I really want to get the most out of the session and out of myself. So say for example, I'm in sharpening phase and I've got some proper intervals, high lactic acid, they're going to be really tiring and I'm going to do quite a lot of them. To take a gel halfway through the session would mean that the second half of the session is going to be of a lot better quality. Whereas if I didn't take the gel, there's probably not even that much point me continuing, because the quality of my running will be far lower, and yeah, there wouldn't be much point. So in training, in important trainings, and also before any race, when you're going to take gels, you need to test if they're going to work for you and how they're going to work, especially if you can stomach them. So in sharpening, I normally do some really race specific running, which is say like a half distance or 2/3 distance of the race on similar terrain, using similar equipment and running at a similar pace to what you're expecting to in the race. And in those sessions, I'd be taking gels so I can test the whole system, how I'm going to carry them, how I'm going to take them, and what effect they'll have on me, and also acclimatize my body to putting something in it that it's not completely 100% used to. I've tested a lot of different brands for gels and sort of nutritional products for racing and training specifically, and a lot of them do work, a lot of them give me the kick, but the biggest difference is a lot of them can be not very kind on your stomach. So okay, to take 1 or 2 usually isn't that bad. But if you're going to be taking 6, 8, sort of 10 gels in one race, whether you can stomach them or not makes a really big difference, because as soon as you start feeling sick in a race, you are not going to perform that well. And that's where I found Mountain Fuel really different. I can stomach them really, really well. I can take a lot of these gels and not really feel that sick from them, and also I don't get as sort of this sweet, horrible feeling in my mouth from when you take too much sugar and gels. I don't really get that sick of them either. So they taste good, they go down really well, they're really easy to actually take during high intensity exercise as well. So a lot of gels can be quite thick, especially the ones from American brands. They're almost like toothpaste, and with those you have to drink water as well. Whereas Mountain Fuel, there's already a little bit of liquid in there. You don't actually have to drink with them, and they could just go down straight away, and they're straight in you without even thinking about it. So whether to use caffeine or not, caffeine again is going to give you a big enhancement in performance. It's probably the biggest sport enhancing drug that's legal there is. But again, you have to test it, and you have to make sure that your body can handle it, especially if you're not, say, a coffee drinker, and then you go and do a load of caffeine in a race. It's probably going to give you stomach problems. And then also, if you are a big coffee drinker, you're maybe going to get slightly less effect from that caffeine. So once again, to test during training and to understand what the product is going to do to you while you're racing is probably really important. The only other thing to say is that it's probably a good idea, this is what I do at least, to take the caffeine gels towards the end of the race when you're most tired and you need most kick to really keep yourself going. And when the sprint finish is coming, that's when you want to be able to push the hardest, and you're going to have the most ability to beat your competitors. So I'd normally take the caffeine gels towards the back end of the race, and that also is a good idea in regards to if my stomach is going to get a little bit aggravated by the caffeine. It's better that happens at the end of the race than at the beginning. Top tips. I actually learned a good trick from Ross Brackley, and this was more specifically for obstacle racing, or if you're doing an especially cold or wet trail race. And that's actually, you can put a piece of tape on the top tab, and that gives it a lot more grip, and it makes it a little bit bigger, and it's just a lot easier to open, and it'll also open a lot cleaner, so it will open straight across, and then give you this sort of slightly bigger thing which you can stow away into your pack or a pocket or throw into a bin, so you're not as likely to lose this little guy at the top, which is a form of littering, I guess, if you do drop it. So that can be really helpful. But more often than not, if I am doing a longer race, I will simply add, say, 5 of these gels into like a soft flask. So this is a 500ml soft flask, but 5 of these guys go in a 250ml soft flask really well with a tiny little bit of water. And then before the race, I would have tested just with water how many sips I can take from that flask, so that way I know how much gel I'm going to get from a standard sip. So yeah, to put all the gels into one soft flask means you've got less faff opening these things, and you can carry a lot more with you with like less rubbish and stuff. So it can make everything that little bit easier. The only thing I would say is I've always tried to stick with the same flavour in the same soft flask, so you're not mixing the flavours. So that means normally I'd have, say, like a soft flask of like the normal gels, and then just 2 caffeine gels in the packaging with me as well. So that's, say, 7 gels, which will get me through, if I was going to take one, say, every 30 minutes, it'll get me through like a good couple of hours of racing. But yeah, I mean, that's what I have for top tips. The only other thing I do want to mention is new in the last 6 months is a gel from Mountain Fuel, which I actually think is really exciting because it's blurring the lines between kind of like more natural fueling and gel fueling, which makes it a lot easier to eat, and that's the new chia gel. So it's a gel made from chia seeds, and they taste really good and they give you good energy, but they're a little bit more natural and just a little bit like nicer. It's just, yeah, it's just a little bit less chemically, say. So I think maybe you get a tiny little bit less performance out of it, but especially for long trainings and in training sessions, the new chia gels are really, really good. And they also have slightly different tastes. So this one's apple and cinnamon. I've got some raspberry ones as well, and it's just like a little bit different to your standard kind of like cola and orange flavor, a little bit more sort of homely flavors, I guess. So yeah, I've been using those especially in a lot of my long skis towards the end of the 6-7 hour skiing session. One of these guys goes down really well and just keeps me fueled up to the end.